on Get Up here, bottom of the hour. And, of course, all week long, we've talked a lot about this top 10 list that was voted on by NFL executives, coaches, and scouts and compiled by our Jeremy Fowler. And the top 10 quarterbacks has gotten a lot of mileage, a lot of conversation. Patrick Mahomes being number one is certainly no surprise. But then you see some of the other names where they slot in and some of those that are missing. And it brings us to our game of quarterback superlatives this morning with that list in mind. Louis, as we looked at those rankings, which quarterback would you say is the most overrated?
Well, based upon some of the guys who slid out of there last year because of the way they played and the fact that one guy didn't play last year, that being Aaron Rodgers, why is Aaron Rodgers in the top 10 right now? Is this a career achievement list, or is it based on how guys are playing right now? Like, where is Brock Purdy? Where's Tua? Where's Jordan Love? Where's Kirk Cousins? These guys all had fantastic seasons last year. Fantastic, played at a super high level. I think those guys should be on the list. Aaron Rodgers should slide down some at the present time.
All right, I will accept that based upon the injury. Harry, which quarterback was underrated to you?
For me, it's Dak Prescott. What he was able to do last year for the Dallas Cowboys, being a dual threat guy, but he was top 2 in completion percentage, QBR, touchdowns, quarterback rating, and happened to be also third in passing yards. So I'm going Dak Prescott.
All right, fair enough. And then Kmart, which quarterback got snubbed? Who was not in the top 10 that absolutely should have been?
Greeny, you know I'm going to die on this hill. The disrespect of Jalen Hurts, y'all need to stop. Harry, y'all need to cut it out. This man was not healthy last year. I don't care what anybody tells me. I don't care what the Eagles say. He was not 100% healthy. And the same way I look at Joe Burrow, a guy that I'm very high, when he's not healthy, the Bengals are different. When he is healthy, he's an assassin. I think Jalen Hurts getting his team to a Super Bowl, you can't say that about a lot of quarterbacks on this list.
Well,
Harold.
And interestingly, Kmart, I mean, it's an interesting comparison you make because Burrow fully got the benefit of the doubt by remaining at number 2, despite a season in which he missed a lot of time because of injury, and even when he played wasn't quite as effective. And Jalen Hurts got no benefit of the doubt.
No benefit whatsoever.
And you know what this reminds me, it made me think of it, and Louis, I brought this up yesterday. You know, the celebrity magazines where they say stars, they're just like us.
Like us.
This tells me executives, coaches, and scouts are just like us in the media. They fall in love one minute and they just completely move on in the next. A year ago at this time, Jalen Hurts was on a rocket ship to the moon, and he has a banged up year. The coaching staff is a catastrophe. Everything, and all of a sudden now there's all these questions and he's not even in the top 10. Do you believe Jalen Hurts recaptures the magic this year, Louis?
Yeah, I do. I do. I believe he has a chance, like if he can stay healthy. That right now, the offensive line will be fine. It will be retooled, and it will be back to where it needs to be. The running game will be explosive. The weaponry on the perimeter is unquestioned. You know that they've got nothing but ballers, and he is a highly motivated, intrinsically individual who hears all this nonsense that's being talked about him. And look, we're absolutely right. He was a series away from defeating the great Patrick Mahomes, if you want to go ahead and frame football games as quarterback versus quarterback. Joe Burrow was close, to winning a Super Bowl and beating Matthew Stafford, but Joe gets the benefit of the doubt and Jalen Hurts does not. You're right. It is very subjective, just like it's going to be when we talk about Josh Allen. People love to rip Josh Allen, absolutely rip him. And for what? Why do they? Because, look, executives are just like us, man. They have their biases, and they come out clearly in these kind of rankings.
I will get to Josh Allen in a minute, but here's what I'll say. The complication of this list, and look, Jeremy does a great job compiling it every year, and as I always say, God bless him because it gives us great stuff to talk about. But there isn't a consistent reason for choosing people. So if we're exclusively saying who had the 10 best seasons last year, then I would understand Jalen Hurts falling out of it. But there is no way in the world that you would take 10 quarterbacks on your team before you would take that guy. Would you agree with? There's no way in the world I'm taking 10 quarterbacks to be my guy before I'm taking Jalen.
Well, here's the thing about Jalen Hurts. Health played a major part in the decline last season, right? Because we know Jalen Hurts.
So did coaching, Harry. So did coaching.
Well, just let me finish, Greeny.
Yes.
I think him being a dual threat quarterback is based on his health. Also, I think one of the most disrespectful things a defense could do to you is blitz you over and over again and say, I know you don't have an answer. That's what happened to Jalen Hurts. Let's not forget the playoff game versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when Todd Bowles sent cover 0, which means I'm blitzing everyone. I'm leaving all my corners and safeties on the island, and we believe that you can't get it done in the pass game. That's one of the most disrespectful things you can do to a quarterback. So I can't ignore that when it comes to Jalen Hurts being on this list in the top 10, because if you can't defeat the blitz as a quarterback, what chance do you have to win a football game?
Was he healthy last year?
No.
Right.
But do you have to be healthy to understand where the blitz is coming from?
So teach us some football. Is it his job to have a plan against the blitz, or is it the team's job, the coaching staff's job, to have a plan against the blitz?
To adjust at halftime.
I think it's collectively. Because y'all are forgetting now, I played with Matt Ryan, who would have those extra meetings with us before our offensive meeting with Tony Gonzalez, Julio Jones, and Roddy White. Hey, this is what I'm thinking against this blitz. I want y'all to do this so we can be on the same page. So I don't think it's just coaches. I think collectively it's a quarterback and a coach working together for the best common goal versus the blitz.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. You have some questions about Jalen Hurts, as obviously a lot of executives do. He had his rise was meteoric, spectacular, and unquestioned. But you have some questions about his ability to remain an absolute elite level quarterback.
I think the only question I have for Jalen Hurts is he going to be able in 2024-25 defeat the blitz, because it's coming. That was the MO last season, and teams are going to throw that at him. So can Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts work together to be able to defeat what's going to be coming in 2024? Because it's no secret anymore.
Clearly, the overwhelming majority of people have a very high regard of Josh Allen. But here's what Louis was talking about. One unnamed NFL executive said one of the more overrated players in the NFL. Immense talent, but he makes a lot of mistakes. He's underdeveloped at winning at the line of scrimmage, tends to lock onto targets, more of a thrower than precision passer, forces throws into traffic. Louis Riddick, I want to do a two-part question to you. Let's start with the first. Do you believe that Josh Allen is one of the more overrated players in the NFL?
No, I don't. And I think that underdeveloped at the line of scrimmage is such a irresponsible thing to say for, especially if that's a front office executive, unless he has someone in the Buffalo Bills coaching staff, on the Buffalo Bills coaching staff, in the meeting rooms or on the headset with Josh Allen every day, and he is telling this executive, you know what, Josh isn't able to really be able to decipher what's happening pre-snap and make post-snap adjustments and get us into good plays and not throw the ball in the coverage. Unless he has someone telling him that explicitly, that is such like an irresponsible, it's a typical, I would like to say I've heard this in my day. It's a typical kind of like, it's typical scouting jargon when you kind of like just don't like a player and you're not quite sure why he's making some of the decisions he is. So you just kind of like haphazardly say, you know what, he's just not that smart at the line of scrimmage. He locks in on wide receivers. Well, no crap, he locks in on wide receivers sometimes. Sometimes he looks at the guy because the guy's coming open and he throws it to like wide receiver number 1. So it makes sense. It's like every play, he doesn't have to find the 5th option in order for you to believe that he doesn't lock in on number 1 wide receivers. See, this kind of nonsense here, without a guy saying, hey, look, why don't you show me the film that you watched and tell me how you came to this conclusion? This is why this kind of stuff, like, this doesn't mean anything to me. This doesn't mean anything to me at all. Josh Allen, I can tell you this. I know teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, right? When they went up to Buffalo and played Kansas City, they were scared to death of Josh because of just how physically imposing he is and how he can make up for maybe some mistakes that he makes, just like, hey, Patrick Mahomes makes mistakes, but he's one of those guys that every team fears because of the total package, because of the ability of his mind to make adjustments when he needs to, and then the ability for him physically to do things that other people can't do. This sounds like someone who's just grinding an axe, maybe had him ranked too low when he came out of college and he became better than he thought. That's what that sounds like.
When I heard that quote, my first thought was like, oh, this must be the same guy who said the league has figured out Lamar Jackson. And then Lamar Jackson went on to win the MVP. Again, because I have never, in all my years of covering the NFL, and it's been a long time, I have never met a talent evaluator. No exec scout has ever said to me, Josh Allen is overrated. In fact, those guys now, they want me to know that back in the day, I was the guy in that front office saying, hey, we need to go get him. This is that. So this quote to me is just bananas. And then you match it up with the guy that we've seen, the steps that we've seen him take, and how he's excelled. And had he not run into Patrick Mahomes year after year after year, we might be talking about Josh Allen as a Super Bowl champion. So that was bananas.
I think the one thing the question should have been for that executive, would you take Josh Allen on your team?
Yeah.
Ahead of your guy.
And if you don't have Patrick Mahomes, I think the answer is yes.
I would put him too. I mean, it's just one opinion, and I understand everyone has them. I would put Allen too after Mahomes. Go ahead, Louis.
I was just going to say, Harry, and I know it wasn't Brett Veach who said this.
Right.
Brett was the one who told me that Josh Allen scares me to death.
That's right.
And look, I know. Look, I know he isn't going to swap out Patrick Mahomes for Josh Allen, but I promise you, he didn't say he was overrated.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: if you're going to hold the lack of Super Bowl championships against him, I think it's important for me to say this aloud again for those of you who have been with us all week. I understand it's summertime and people are doing different things. Do you know how many quarterbacks there are in the league right now, active quarterbacks who are starters, who have won a Super Bowl, who are younger than 35? Do you know how many there are?
3.
No, there's one.
It's
Patrick Mahomes, and that's it.
Yeah.
The next youngest projected starter with a ring is Russell Wilson, who is 35. And then the other names on the list are Matthew Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and Joe Flacco, who does not project to be a backup. None of these guys have won it yet. Lamar hasn't won it yet. Burrow hasn't won it yet. Hurts hasn't won it yet. Herbert hasn't won it yet. None of the guys that we're talking about. So if you're going to hold that, you're going to choose Allen to hold that against, then you need to be holding it against everybody.